Okay, gonna try this again. Okay, I am on chapter 10, the reproductive principle. Reproduction means the repetition of a state of motion. Reproduction is repetition. All phenomena of nature are repetitive. All states of motion are repetitive. All idea of mind is repetitive. Idea of mind is the product of thinking. Repetition of idea is the reproduction of that product. This is a universe of repetition of motion. This is a universe of reproduction. This universe of cause and effect is perpetual and continuous as to cause, and repetitive as to all effects of cause. All effect is caused by thinking and registered in motion. All motion is either an action or reaction of its cause. Nothing is produced as an effect of thinking that is not either the action or reaction of force expressed in motion. That which is produced must be reproduced. No state of motion ever ends. All states of motion are forever reproduced. All states of motion of apparently separate things are actions and reactions of the force which produced them. All variant idea of mind is registered in separate states of motion which have measurable dimensions. The reproduction of all idea is the result of union of the action and reaction which register that ideal. Every action is male. Every reaction is female. Every action is electropositive. Every reaction is electronegative. Every action has its equal and opposite reaction. Every action and every reaction is a tone in an octave of the universal constant of energy. Equal and opposite actions and reactions, when united, comprise a unit of an octave of the universal constant of energy. An action and its opposite reaction are not two. Their energies, when combined, make one. Reaction is born of action, and action is born again of reaction. All ideal and all forms of ideal are the results of union between equal or unequal opposite actions and reactions of force. Perfection of mating lies in the union of exactly equal and opposite male actions and female reactions. In perfection of union lies stability. Imperfection of mating lies in the union of unequal and opposite male actions and female reactions. In imperfection of union lies instability. Unequal actions and reactions will unite with unwillingness, which increases in proportion to their degree of departure from exact equality in opposition. When the potentials of the opposites are too far removed from equality, then will union cease. In organic life, the union or reproduction of opposites is limited, and beyond the limitations, reproduction is impossible. In the chemistry of inorganic life, the unstable union of unequal and opposite states of motion is also limited, and beyond the limitations, union and reproduction is impossible. This is a universe of reproduction of idea in accumulated potential of the constant of energy, of registration of the soul of idea in inertia, and of reproduction of accumulated potential. The idea of all things is produced by union of opposite actions and reactions under conditions favorable to union, and is reproduced only under similar conditions. Reproduction is governed by the following laws. Unions of opposed actions and reactions are possible only within certain limitations. When union does not take place, there can be no reproduction. equal and opposite actions and reactions, when united, are satisfied in their unions and will remain united. Stable unions will always reproduce true to species. Unequal and opposite actions and reactions, when united, are unsatisfied in their unions and will always seek their true tonal mates. Unsatisfied unions are unstable unions. Unstable unions never reproduce true to species. Unstable unions tend to return to their separate tonal states. If either mate in an unstable union finds a more equal mate, it will always leave the former and go to the latter. That which is true of chemical unions is true of all species of organic life. Every chemist knows to a certainty that he can break up any unstable compound formed by the union of unequal opposites by merely introducing an element which is more nearly a true tonal mate to either of the united elements. Consider, for example, a chemical union between the male action sodium, which is 601 of the sixth octave, with selenium, which is 702 of the next octave, and unequally opposite female. The introduction of iodine, 801 of the eighth octave, will cause sodium to leave selenium and combine with iodine to form the more stable compound sodium iodide. Introduce bromide of the seventh octave, and sodium will in turn leave iodine to form sodium bromide, a still more stable compound. Finally, introduce chlorine, which is the true mate, 601 of the sixth octave, and sodium will leave the bromide in order to form the very stable compound sodium chloride. No element of any octave whatsoever can displace chlorine from its union with sodium. Chemically, every element is both alkaline and acid, but is preponderantly one or the other. All male electropositive elements are preponderantly alkaline. All female elements are preponderantly acid. The alkaline male actions, when united with equal and opposite and female reactions, are neutralized. They become salts. Alkaline male actions united with unequal acid female reactions attenuate the acidity or alkalinity. Hydrogen, united with its true mate, helium, becomes a neutral salt. Hydrogen and fluoride will unite as an acid. Hydrogen and chloride will unite as a stronger acid. All acids or alkalis increase in their strength as their resentment of unequal union increases. Likewise, the ability to reproduce decreases as the acidity or alkalinity of such unions increases. Chemical elements in union reproduce by the same process by which all other states of motion reproduce. Of this more will be written when further consideration of causes make the effects of those causes more comprehensible. All male actions are centripetal and all female reactions are centrifugal. Variance of centripetal or centrifugal force is variation of potential. Union and reproduction are always governed by a sex periodicity in electromagnetic charge, the order of which will be written down and charted. Consider, for example, the reproduction of the sound of the human voice echoing in the hills. Sound, like other forms of energy, is an accumulated potential. Release this high potential and it immediately expands. Expansion is radiation. Radiation is discharge of accumulated potential. As the sound of the voice, as accumulated potential, radiates into the silence of higher octaves of lower potential and impacts against the closely integrated high potential of the cliff side, the degenerative discharge is reversed and becomes generative charge. Expanding lowering potentials is reversed to contracting higher potential. In other words, the sex opposites in the radiating sound waves are forced into closer contact by the impact so that the wave dimensions which originally produced the sound are restored. The counterpart of the sound as cause has been produced as a reproduced effect of that cause. It is not the same sound, it is another sound. It is a reproduced counterpart, a regenerated reincarnation of the state of motion which originally produced the sound. That which is true of regeneration by echo is also true of reproduction by radio or any other similar process. All are but the reversal of radiation into regeneration by impact against the inertial planes of higher potentials. Generation or regeneration is an effect of gravitation, an impact of radiative energy against any lower octave of integration will set up the necessary resistance to the radiative energy to regenerate it into its original form. Some old misconceptions must now be corrected. By a brief statement of principle, the full explanation of which will be given in their proper order. That light travels, energy is transmitted, electricity is conducted or inducted, and that heat radiates from its source to other localities are principles which modern science accepts as fundamental facts. These great misconceptions gave rise to the theory that the ether is a quivering, elastic solid existing in space along the undulating waves of which light, heat, and all forms of energy can travel from one place to another. It is hereby conceded that all motion is expressed in waves, but those waves are not undulating. Energy cannot travel along waves because entire waves do not form in sequence. In other words, one whole wave is not completed before another begins. Waves are but effects which evolve as their cause evolves. Waves reproduce themselves part for part in sequence throughout the universe. Energy, therefore, cannot travel along waves which are not undulating, but are reproducing themselves part for part. It cannot leap across waves which are lacking in troughs and crests. Light does not travel, it reproduces itself. The light and heat which appear to come from the star or the sun has never left the star or the sun. That which man sees as light and feels as heat is the reproduced counterpart of the light and of the heat, which is its cause. The cause remains in the restricted area of the state of motion, where it began its existence, as an appearance, until it expands into disappearance. That which man sees as a star is not a vision, a picture, an image, or a reflection of the star. It is the exact, reproduced chemical counterpart of the star, integrated as light within the observer. That which is true of the star is true of the image of the mountain or the brook or the meadow violet. No ideal of mind is seen at a distance. The state of motion which represents the ideal is reproduced as light by regenerative impact within the observer. No ideal of mind has place or position in time or space. All ideal is universal. All generated states of motion degenerate by expansion. Expanding states of motion regenerate by impact against the inertial planes of higher potential. Man has a higher potential than his surrounding atmosphere. Any object seen by man is a generated potential, which is higher than the expanded potential which intervenes between the object and the observer. The higher potential of the object discharges into the lower surrounding potential as the reproduced expanded counterpart of its particular state of motion and recharges within the observer. This reproducing, expanding counterpart impacts against the inertial plane of equal pressures which exists somewhere between the object and the observer. This impact causes a reversal of the process of reproduction of an expanding counterpart into reproduction of a contracting counterpart. The expansion of a state of motion is degeneration. The recontraction of expanding states of motion is regeneration. The law of reproducing idea is the principle of universality. All that is of everything else that is. The principle of reproduction is the principle of energy transmission. Energy transmission is conductive and inductive. Conduction is the lowering of high potential toward inertia. Induction is the raising of a low potential away from inertia. The electronegative, dissipative reaction impulse of energy transmission is conduction. The electropositive generative action impulse of energy transmission is induction. Conduction energy resists the completion of the wave. Inductive energy ever leaps ahead in its eagerness to complete the wave. Conductive energy ever pulls toward inertia through the harmonic of the wave. Inductive energy ever pulls toward the overtones of the wave, which are the points of maximum opposition. A state of equilibrium is the state of inertia which exists where pressures of two opposing high potentials of accumulated energy are equalized. Form of idea is a state of potential which is held together as form by the general active law of gravitation until it is torn apart by the radioactive law of radiation. All potential is constantly changing and interchanging. The potentials of all things are constantly rising because of their absorption of the discharge energy of all other states of motion. All mass is regenerated by absorption of the impacting radioactive energy of all other mass. Also, are all potentials constantly lowering because of their expanded reproduction in the surrounding lower potentials. All mass is degenerated by its own radiation. All mass is generated by accumulation of the universal constant of energy into higher potential. That which is generated must be radiated. All mass is degenerated by release of energy accumulation. Consider, for example, the regeneration of the planet by the radiation of the sun's high potential of energy impacting against its surface. Modern science presumes that heat travels in some mysterious manner across the vast 90 million miles of space between the sun and the earth, crossing that space in which a temperature of nearly absolute zero prevails, and then arriving here hot. Man feels warmth from the sun, and in some manner it must be accounted for. The theory arrived at is far from the truth. Somewhere in the intervening low potentials between the sun and the earth is the inertial plane where the pressures of the potentials of the sun and earth are equalized. Against this inertial plane, the sun's cooling and expanding radiation impacts and reverses its expansion into contraction. The cooling, expanding, lowering potential reverses into heating, contracting, rising potential. By this impact, the expanding radioactive energy is reversed into contracting general active energy. By the impact of the sun's regenerated light emanations against this planet, all disintegrating matter is regenerated. Every living thing reverses its nightly intent to die and lives again. Flowers which have folded their petals reopen them and grow. Animal life which has closed its eyes in sleep becomes conscious once more and takes on new energy. The modern concept that solar energy is due to contraction is a misconcept. The energy given off from the sun is energy that is being generated within the sun. No energy can be radiated that has not been or is not being generated. All radiating mass is generating. All opposite effects of motion are simultaneous in their expression. The sun is preponderantly generative, it is heating. The sun is in a lesser degree radiative, it is cooling. As the sun heats, it radiates. Radiation disintegrates. As the sun cools, it generates. Generation integrates. Here follows the law of the cycle of appearance and disappearance of form. Cold generates. Generation contracts. Contraction integrates. Integration heats. Heat radiates. Radiation expands. Expansion disintegrates. Disintegration cools. Thus it may be seen that one opposite is always born of the other, which in its turn becomes the cause of the first. Thus it may be seen that the disintegration of the preponderantly generating sun becomes the regeneration of this planet. The coefficient of cold for an expanded volume of mass of low pressure and potential becomes the coefficient of heat for the same mass in a contracted volume of higher pressure and higher potential. The totals of heat and potential have not changed, they have merely changed their dimensions. Nor has heat traveled, it has been reproduced. Magnetic flow in its magnetic orbit has been interrupted, that is all. The voice impacting against the cliff is an exact analogy. The voice regenerates into sound, and the positive charge of the cliff increases because of the impact. The heat from the sun has been disintegrated by radiation into the opposite of heat, which is cold. In radiation, however, the heat energy is not lost. Nothing can be lost. The energy which generated that heat is registered together with the energy which radiated it in an expanded counterpart of them both. No ideal of mine once begun ever ends. No idea of mine ever began or ever ended. And that is the conclusion of that chapter. The next chapter is called This is a Finite Universe. And I will not read anymore. Let's say I'm at 23 minutes. I'll let this run out so you can see more of the orbs. I think what I'm looking at is what the ether looks like. Not all of what it looks like, I'm sure. Because look at all the difference. Every single one is a different scene. There's no two alike of these. And so there's so much that all of this is around us. It surrounds us, all this color. Where there's light, even where there's dark, there must be some color. Because even what is dark, it is a form of light. And I'm beginning to see a little more into what all this is talking about unequal mates. It's the same with marriage. If you're unequally mated with someone, that you don't have a stable union. Usually ends up in divorce. So there's a lot to be thought about all this that Walter Russell is talking about, because even though it's hard to understand, it benefits us somehow. I feel a little smarter, but now don't ask me to explain it in detail. I can't do that. But this is making sense to me. And the more you listen and read and reread, the even more you understand. Eventually it starts sinking in. I know one thing, if you think a lot of positive thoughts, you're putting out a kind of energy that's that's going to benefit you. If you're putting out thoughts that are really low, they don't have much pressure and they're not going to help you at all. They'll bring you down. And that has to figure into this about potential and induction and conduction. All of it has to do with our thoughts, because that's what light is. Our thoughts are light. One time when I was like meditating, I thought I felt like I was talking to Walter Russell. And I said, is light illumination or something to that effect? And I got the answer, no, light is not illumination. Light is information. Well, I wonder why gosh, these are turning out real bad. These pictures have degenerated for some reason. They're not being clear. Oh well. They were at first. Sometimes the program messes up, because those aren't good pictures. I'm going to take it and go back. You see, I have so many pictures. Oh, I see. They're not generating fast enough. They're showing faster than they'll pop up. It takes this program a little while for them to generate enough potential to show up. But I've got so many different orb pictures. And since it wasn't showing them good because of it being slow, I will just show them to you this way. Until this ends, which should happen real soon, if it hadn't already. I think it has already. Nope, still going. Now I'm holding the camera. I've got it rigged up where my camera's being held by this little thing on this stack of books on my table. And there's my computer screen. There's where I'm reading from. And no, I'm not going to show you around the rest of the house. It's messy right now. So, this is the Dove Lady. I will end now. I hope you're enjoying the orbs. Bye-bye for now.